Namo Buddhaya, and welcome to the Buddha Dharma TV Sunday program. I am Lisa Chu. Today we will start with a Dharma talk, followed by a song and a Dhammapada session. The Dharma talk today is by Ajahn Jayasaro, who was born in Isle of Wight in England and a Buddhist monk in the forest tradition of Ajahn Chah. He received full ordination by Ajahn Chah in 1980 and was the abbot of Wat Pa Nanachat until 2002. Ajahn Jayasaro currently lives alone in a one-monk monastery in Thailand. We are grateful to the Venerable for sharing with us the Dharma talk, which was given in a recent English Dharma retreat in Thailand in March 2025.
One of the most unpopular words in schools I found is compulsory. You don't want things that are compulsory. When we first started the Torsi school in Bangkok many years ago, can't even remember how many years, 30 years maybe, trying to develop a Buddhist model of education, beginning with kindergarten and primary school. And the meetings we had with teaching staff tended to reveal a split between the older teachers and the younger ones. And the question came up, should meditation retreats be compulsory for the teachers? So this was the proposal, that the teachers at the school should participate in at least one annual meditation retreat. And so the older teachers all thought it should be compulsory, and the younger teachers said it should be voluntary, it shouldn't be compulsory. And so I had the deciding vote, being the chairman. So I said we would go for the middle way. It would be compulsory only for those who didn't volunteer. And that's how we decided it. But often there is a resistance to anything that we feel that we are being forced into, irrespective of whether it's beneficial or not. It's just a sense of being forced and being told what to do. It's very difficult for many people, many of us. But the assumption is that without some kind of external compulsion, we would have some kind of free rein. We would be free to what would we be free to do? We would, in fact, be free to follow our likes and dislikes. And if I use a posh word, it's like reification, or the importance given to likes and dislikes over the past many years is quite incredible. And this kind of enshrined in sort of the social media or Facebook likes or dislikes, and how powerful that can be when someone sees the number of likes or the number of dislikes on something they've posted. Wow, how could that have such a incredible emotional impact? It's like magic, isn't it? It's black magic of a kind. But for ourselves also, this idea that we are who we are is defined by what we like and what we dislike, and people wanting to get to know each other. And they'll say, well, basically, what do you like? What foods do you like? What music do you like? What movies do you like? What do you dislike? So liking and disliking becomes such a huge thing. And personality seems to hinge upon liking and disliking and being liked or disliked to an incredible degree. So in practice, it's not surprising that when we apply effort to being mindful of our meditation object with sampajanya, clear comprehension of purpose, of suitability, so on, and when we have the optimum effort, we find that likes and dislikes become more and more wispy and insignificant, eventually pass away. So this is an interesting discovery, meditation, that liking and disliking becomes a distraction and it conceals the truth of things. And that being too tied to what we like and what we dislike, we become constricted. And we are imprisoned by our likes and dislikes. So a phrase we don't hear so much these days, but I used to be very popular, it's like the free world. This is the free world. And when I grew up, there was this image of people in China. They all cut their hair the same way. They all wear these like Mao suits and caps, and they're this is kind of image you had, and they're completely like robots. And we're in the free world, You want to buy a cup of coffee and you can, and you can choose what kind of car you want to drive, and so freedom is basically freedom of consumption, freedom to consume. And again, the idea is there is this kind of independent body who is set free from the restraints of an oppressive government and can make these choices, If I want to drink Coke rather than Pepsi, I can, It's like, you can't stop me. And often being aware of how the choices that you're making, are decided for you. So you're making choices within a very small kind of arc or very small bracket of what So the free world, the freedom to consume, so it's often artificial choices being made, creating artificial freedoms. And the extent to which we consider our freedom, our identity, our autonomy as being based upon what we like and being able to pursue and consume what we like and to avoid, keep away from what we dislike. And this is such a very strong habit and tendency, and and it's when we really start to look more closely at the mind, then we see that actually likes and dislikes are holding us down. They're not expressions of freedom, they are obstacles to freedom. So as we meditate, I think then it's not that likes and dislikes disappear from your mind. Some of them are have been hardwired since we were kids, particularly like foods. You see that very clearly. If there's a particular kind of food that you loved when you were a small child, you're basically going to love that all your life. We have these kinds of inbuilt or very deeply conditioned likes and dislikes. But what changes is not the existence of likes and dislikes, it's like what role they play within the kind of the ecology of your mind, or what's their how much importance you give to them. And one analogy that I've come up with and is of the farmer in the northeast where I spent so much time. Then sometimes the farmers are going out into the fields in very uncomfortable conditions, extremely hot, extremely humid, pouring with rain. And for sure they have feelings of like and dislike coming up in their minds. They don't like hot weather any more than somebody who works in an office likes hot weather. They don't like humidity or being soaked through to the skin. But it's not something that they make a problem out of because there's no option. A year or so ago, I was speaking with farmers in central India, and they told me that in the hot season it gets up to 50 degrees centigrade. And I said, goodness, how can you survive? How can you work? How can you do anything in 50 degrees? And a young farmer just gave me this really kind of withering look, you just get on with it. I mean, you don't have any choice. What else are you going to do? You've got a family to feed. And when you have that kind of pressure on you to make a living, to survive, then those thoughts of, I don't like it when it's hot like this, or it's cold like this, or it's wet like this, they're there in the back of your mind, but you don't give any attention to them, because why would you? And when we're practicing meditation, this is a kind of evolution that happens. There are likes and dislikes in the mind, but they're just part of the environment. It's part of the sort of the ecology of the mind, if you like. They're not something that you feel compelled to act upon. Whereas, as I mentioned just now, many people feel that they should have the right, to pursue and enjoy the things they like and to avoid the things they don't like, and feel oppressed and uncomfortable when they cannot enjoy the things they like, or when they are compelled or asked to do things they don't like. And apart from anything else, it makes like and dislike into these permanent entities. And in fact, they're changing all the time. We know, we see in our own lives of other people, so many times when things that we really liked for some time gradually became less enjoyable, and we start to become indifferent to them or even become averse to them. And again, it's true of physical objects and also of people. So this uncertainty and fluidity and impermanence of like and dislike are invisible to someone who gives them so much importance. So the 5 hindrances to meditation practice, those first 2 correspond to like and dislike. So in the Pali language, they are kamachanta and vyapada, usually translated as sensual desire and aversion. But the sensuality that is referred to here covers a wide spectrum, and it includes the more coarser kinds of sensual desire, sensual passions, sexual desires, but also includes more neutral kinds of desires and even very subtle expressions of this defilement, which are merely a movement towards something which is experienced as pleasant. So in meditation, why won't the mind stay with an object? Why can't you just say, so we have 45 minutes now, I'm just going to stay with my breath, I don't think I'll let my mind go anywhere else. Of course you can't do that. And right there is some very profound truth of uncontrollability and anatta. But when we give the mind this task of returning to a single object, it reacts, it fights, it feels constricted. And if there's not a total consent to the practice, and the words that I used yesterday, words like interest and contentment, enjoyment of the meditation object, then before very long there is the object is unable to give sufficient content, sufficient pleasure to the mind, and there's a boredom arises. Boredom meaning, this is not enough for me. I want something else. I want something more than the sensation of the breath or my meditation object. So it's a discontent. And then the mind will often go off into these realms of like and dislike. So in the sensual desire, kamacchanda, the first hindrance, the mind seeks out things that give immediate pleasure. So anything in the realm of the senses, in the world at all, that we find pleasant, that we like, they draw us towards. It's like a comfort blanket. It's something that when you think of this thing, you just feel, it's like settling back into a comfy chair. Or it's a something, you know. And meditation can be fearful. It can inspire fear that one's treading into the unknown, or perhaps there is a fear of things that might come up in the mind, and there's the retreat into the realm of the pleasant and the liked. And so for some people, and sometimes it might be sexual fantasies, but it might be thoughts and memories of food or sport, movies, music, politics, anything at all in the realm of the senses that when you think about it, there's this sense of, it's like an immediate, like a sugar rush, you know, it's immediate gratification. And so if in your daily life, and generally you're someone who gives a lot of importance to enjoying what you like, and you have a lot of aversion to not being able to, then the mind, when it occurs this obstacle, a lack of immediate gratification, and inability to experience sensual pleasure physically because you're sitting on the floor, cross-legged or whatever, then let the mind just shoots off, and it suddenly appears in the realm of the senses. And that is one reason we're saying that it's so important to enjoy the breath, enjoy the meditation, be content with that practice, and because without it, there's such a strong tendency to seek that gratification elsewhere, and usually it's in memory or thoughts based upon memory. The second hindrance, a dislike, and that's very, very common also, where the mind just picks up some small irritating factor and makes a story out of it. And it's a realm, it's a world of self-righteousness or aversion, especially if there is an element of being right, and this is wrong, shouldn't be like this, you shouldn't do that. And Ajahn said this and he's still doing it. That kind of judgmental mind, and taking some small negative, seeing what it might be in a meditation hall, it might be the temperature, or whether the doors are open or not, and how hot, how cold it is. The air conditioning is too cool, it's not on enough, and why do the people who sit next to me make that noise when they sit? They don't have to make that noise, they could be a lot quieter than that. There's so many things, an innumerable number of things that you can create a problem and feel averse about, and this sense of dislike. There's also a being averse, being disliked, feeling wronged by something. There's an addictive quality to that as well. As I say, it's like a world that you can be born into. And on a more extreme level, if you've been mistreated by somebody, and there's something that's bearing in your mind, there's something that's carrying around with you, then it will very likely come up in meditation as you relax more. Stuff that you've been holding down and repressing in daily life is very likely to come up, and for the mind to be fascinated by that, and to fall into that world of aversion. When in the description of the mind which is free from the hindrances, and the description of the joy and pleasure that the mind free from the hindrances experiences, they would refer to the joy of seclusion. So that doesn't simply refer to physical seclusion, but it refers to seclusion from like and dislike. This is a really startling discovery in meditation, that the joy of being free from like and dislike is far more profound than the pleasure, enjoyment that one gets from those things. That they are like chains upon you. So the joys and the of the mind as it follows the path of meditation are not defilements as such. They can be attached to in the wrong way. But the Buddha said on many occasions that the pleasure and joy of meditation are not to be rejected and not to be avoided. That there is nothing poisonous about them, nothing dangerous about them. And it is through realizing the joy of the mind which is purified or abandoned temporarily, at least, that gives you the courage and the determination to let go of small pleasures. So there is this idea that the more profound joy and happiness, pleasure of the meditative mind is only accessible to someone who is willing to let go of, abandon, renounce the small pleasures of the senses, the small pleasures of like and dislike. So the similes, very well-known similes of one who has abandoned the hindrances, it's the joy of some. So the first hindrance of liking and indulging in memories and imagination based upon our likes is like being in debt, and the one who abandons that experiences the joy of someone who is released from debt, someone who's caught up in the aversion and anger and negativity and indulging in that. It's like someone who has a fever, and abandoning that gives the pleasure of someone who recovers from a fever. So it's not, in all these cases, it's not that you gain something, but it's something that was causing you suffering disappears. And the third hindrance of sloth and torpor, that's like being in a prison, and abandoning it gives the joy of someone who's released from prison. Mental agitation, worry, is like being a slave, and you can't rest for a minute. So you go over there and you run over there, and it says, "Come back here," and you come back here, and it's your mind just wandering, rushing around from here and there for no purpose, other than the whims of the master of Mara, as in this case. So the freedom from the fourth hindrance is like the freedom of the this released slave, no longer a slave. And the fifth hindrance of doubt, skeptical doubt, is like being lost in a dangerous desert and inhospitable terrain, and finding one's way home is the release from doubt. So in every case there is a joy that arises from letting go of the hindrance, which far exceeds the dubious pleasure of holding on to those hindrances. But those hindrances are all there in the mind because one part of us wants them to be there. And that's why we have to use some wisdom. We can't just blast the hindrances out of the mind with this sort of super samadhi power. That will lead to miccha samadhi, wrong samadhi, not samadhi that will result in wisdom. So it would be the sort of rock holding down the grass kind of samadhi. But recognizing what it is in the hindrance that we want, and which we find on some level satisfying, and that's the way to uproot those hindrances. The hindrances are, in some way we can say they are like kind of initial basic level defilements. But then there are also suttas in the Tipitaka where the Buddha is giving these long causal chains of mental states, and with the paticca samuppada, so it can sometimes give the impression of ignorance as like a first cause, so the ultimate cause. But the Buddha said, and ignorance too has its conditioning factors, and what are the conditioning factors for ignorance, or avijja? It's the 5 hindrances. So from those teachings, these 5 hindrances are not small, sort of basic stumbling block defilements. They have a very large role to play in the suffering or the freedom from suffering of human beings. So one of the takeaways here, I think, is that the hindrances that come up in the mind are the ones which are stronger for us at different times, or maybe ones that we experience more than other people. It varies from person to person due to personality factors, other kinds of factors. But we are encountering patterns and conditioned phenomena which are playing out in our daily life, and working on them in meditation helps us to recognize them and to abandon them in daily life. And yet at the same time, we have habits in daily life which feed the defilements. And so there has to be this two-way process whereby the meditation practice is having a beneficial effect on our daily life, but also where we're taking certain steps in our daily life which are having a beneficial effect on our meditation. I'll give you an example, like strong mental agitation. So there are often questions that come up. How do I deal with mental agitation in meditation? And there are techniques, of course, but mental agitation actually has a beneficial role to play, and is somewhat similar to physical pain, in that nobody enjoys physical pain, of course, by its very nature, but it's a good thing, isn't it? Because it's a sign, it's an indication that there's something wrong with our body and that we need to see to it. So if we had no physical pain, that might seem quite an enchanting idea, but it would be dangerous, wouldn't it? So it has a role to play. And mental agitation, of course, as I mentioned yesterday, first day of a retreat, that's going to be pretty well normal, that there'd be a certain amount of agitation in the mind. But if it's something that's like long-term, and whenever you meditate, it's not just a matter of finding a good technique to deal with it, But just as physical pain indicates an abnormality of the body, mental agitation is an indication of some abnormality in the way you're living your life in the world, and you can't separate them. In particular, if you're just taking too much information into your brain every day, and your mind adjusts to that. It becomes information addicted mind, information junkie mind. And so a retreat or some time where you consciously reduce the information coming into your mind, you're not looking at your telephone anymore, then it's like, being deprived of a drug. And there's a very strong reaction to it. So if this is a continual problem throughout, a long period of really intense mental agitation, then we have to think about making changes in daily life, particularly in terms of the input, the amount of information that is coming into our brain, and finding ways of restraining the senses. Restrain the senses being having a more efficient filter of what we allow into our mind. So these days people can be very conscious and very careful about things they put into their body, foods, and avoiding highly processed foods or this kind of food and that kind of food, and taking a lot of supplements, and being very mindful of what goes into their body. And yet at the same time we're very heedless about what comes into their mind in terms of what they look at, what they listen to, their conversations, what they talk about. So all these things easily feed the hindrances, and in particular, in this case, the fourth hindrance. So we talk about formal meditation and more informal daily life meditation, but really in practice these things are so intertwined and affect each other so intimately. But with the formal meditation, we are entering into an artificial situation where we set up the conditions as far as possible to facilitate the practice of mindfulness, as far as possible to minimize the obstacles to being mindful and maximize the supporting conditions. This is what defines the environment in a monastery or a meditation center. So it's not a causal factor. You come into a peaceful place like this and everything's set up, that it's going to be easy, but it's easier. And having done that, then we look at our minds and we try to train our minds, and our bodies and our minds provide a very efficient feedback system. So it's like we're in a laboratory, if you like, and our body and mind are our objects of study, and we're looking at them under the microscope of mindfulness. So to give you an example, what I mean by this is in the area of posture. So one area of study is the relationship between the body and the mind, and the posture of the body and mental states and how they affect each other. So we can observe that I think that sitting, how we place our legs or our hands can have some effect, but it's a minor effect. It's not a major conditioning factor for meditation experience. But certainly our spine is, and whether or not the body is straight, and that's not like a forced straightness, but just a natural straightness of sitting in the correct way. Then we can observe, and so much of meditation is about observation and learning from our observations. So we see that if mindfulness is lost, it tends to reflect in the posture. And so posture is giving you feedback. You know, if you've lost mindfulness and you're starting to slump, that's your feedback. If you're putting too much effort, trying too hard, then there can be agitation of mind increases, physical discomfort, sense of tightness across the chest or pain in the head. This is the body, mind giving you feedback, too much effort, not enough relaxation. If you're too relaxed, then, as I say, your body starts to slump, mind goes off into one of these realms of like or dislike, or you start to feel sleepy. This is the feedback. So rather than getting discouraged by these hindrances, look at them as useful information. Like you're getting this immediate feedback. Everything that happens is an indication. So if let's say if there's sleepiness or agitation, or these things are telling you that your effort is not this atapi effort, it's not the balanced optimum effort, or that there's some gaining idea in the mind, some craving in the mind, or some wrong idea in the mind. So these are not like enemies so much as these are information. It's information that the meditative approach is imbalanced or it's incorrect, and this gives us the opportunity to make changes and to remedy and tweak the effort. So if we avoid this idea of I'm doing this thing called meditation in order to get this result, which is samadhi or vipassana, whatever, and we look at I'm training my mind, I'm looking and I'm understanding the five khandhas and the body and the mind and the arising and passing away of defilement, and what feeds defilement and what reduces defilement and what eliminates defilement, and everything that happens, and whether the mind's slipping away into pleasant memories, and it means that the mind is dissatisfied, is discontent with the meditation object. That's the information you've got. If your mind is wandering off into pleasant daydreams, then it means that you prefer that to the breath. So that's really important information, and so the attitude again is of learning, of inquiry, of applying these techniques and seeing what happens. Oh, this happened. Some people, they sit for a while and then the mind starts to calm down, and then suddenly it feels like they're floating in the air, or they're sinking to the earth, or an arm disappears, or a leg disappears, or the head disappears. And so that's an unusual phenomena. And the sense that you have an arm, or you have a leg, and you have a head, that's a usual phenomena. But the practice is to maintain the same clarity of awareness and equanimity, both with the usual and the unusual phenomena. And that's the refuge in that Buddha knowing. Say, oh yeah, oh that's interesting. This feels just like got no arms, or I've got no legs, or I've got no head, and that's the current state of affairs. It's like this right now. No need to get frightened, no need to get excited. It's just it's just this. This is unusual. Oh, this is usual, this is unusual. But usual and unusual are just two sides of the same coin. It's just the nature of present experience. Okay, so I'd like to leave discourse at this point.
Let us now listen to an instrumental peace-giving Buddhist music. Now it is time for the weekly Dhammapada sermon, a collection of sayings of the Buddha, which is one of the best known Buddhist scriptures and most widely read. The weekly Dhammapada will be presented by Venerable Professor Bhante Sivali. Let us welcome Bhante Sivali to present a brief sermon of the Dhammapada verse 99. This is the last verse of the chapter 7 on Arahat, the worthy ones.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Good evening. Welcome to the Bdtv Dhammapada program. Today we are going to discuss the last verse of the chapter 7 called the Arhats, the worthy ones. And first of all, let me thank you for coming to listen to the Dhamma talk. So the 99 verses of the Dhammapada, and it goes as Ramaniyani Aranyani Yatha Na Ramati Janu Vitaraga Ramishanti Nate Kama Gavesino. This is the verse that was especially attributed to a young monk who came to see Buddha and got certain instructions as to how he can continue to meditate, or object of meditation. So Buddha advised him accordingly, according to his characters. Buddha gave him the method of meditation. Then he went to nearby forest for meditation. What happened was, he just started meditating. There was a courtesan who was waiting in this area for receiving someone, and as that person was not coming, and there was no sign of coming, having waited so long, so this lady thought of inciting, kind of approaching him. And this young monk was sitting there trying to concentrate and start meditating according to Buddha's instructions. But this lady, young lady, she just tried to take part of his clothes here and there. But this young monk was fresh for meditation. He was a little bit disturbed, and what he did was, came to his mind that, oh, why shouldn't I look at this and later maybe I can meditate. So, some ill will. And so evil thoughts occurred to him. So at this moment, he was almost to get involved in this lustful conduct. The Buddha immediately noticed. Somehow Buddha could notice it. And Buddha said to himself, "No, this young monk got instructions for me and he has gone there for meditation. Now what is he doing? Cannot let this happen." They immediately, with his supernormal power, appeared And at that time, having appeared there, Buddha uttered this verse to tell him what is really going on. Ramaniyani aranyani yatha na ramati jano vita raga ramisanti nati kamagaveshu. Means those fascinating forests that do not capture the mind of the worldly masses, and in which they do not take delight, are attractive to the passionless ones. The fascinating forest do not capture the mind of the worldly masses, because they are always for the bright and colorful and worldly things. So, the Buddha said that fascinating forests that do not capture the mind of the worldly masses, and in which they do not take delight, are attractive to the passionless ones. Only passionless ones. The arahats, the worthy ones, take delight in the forest because they are not pursuers of sensual pleasures. That changed complete the mind of the young monk. He ran away because Buddha could convince him the noble path that he is pursuing and the ill will, and also these evil thoughts that occurred, and trying to divert his attention from the holy thing to bad things. At that time Buddha uttered this, Vitaraga Ramishanti. The Araras take delight in the forest because they are not pursuers of sensual pleasures. Vitaraga, the passionless ones, the Arhat, the worthy ones. The Arhat is essentially a passionless one. An Arhat, literally a worthy one, is not subject to rebirth because he does not accumulate fresh karmic activities. The seeds of his reproduction have all been destroyed. The Arhat realizes that what was to be accomplished has been done. A heavy burden of sorrow has finally been relinquished, and all forms of craving and all shades of ignorance are totally annihilated. The happy pilgrim now stands on heights more than the world. More than the world. Experiencing the unutterable bliss of Nibbana. Unutterable bliss of Nibbana. Rebirth can no longer affect him, since no more reproductive seeds are formed by fresh karmic activities. An Arhat is called an Aseka, one who does not undergo training. He doesn't need it. What is to be done, it's done. What is to be eradicated, all eradicated, is accomplished one. Therefore, Arhat is called an Ashekha, one who does not undergo training, as who has lived the holy life and has accomplished his object. He has reached his destination. The other saints from the Sotapatti stage, or the first stage, to the Arhat path, enlightened, destination of enlightenment, Arhat could experience the Nibbanic blessings, Nibbanic bliss. So, like the other Arhat saints from the Sotapatti stage to the Arhat path stage are called Sekha. From Sotapatti, from the first stage to the Arhat, fourth stage, final stage, they are called Sekha because they still undergo training. Arhats could experience the Nibbanic bliss uninterruptedly for as long as they liked. As long as they liked. Even in this life. This, in Pali language, is known as Nirodha Samapatti. Nirodha Samapatti. So physically he is there, but everything, no karmic activities involved, his speech, his movements, activities, because that all what is conducive to produce those things is completely eradicated. Dhara. One who has lived the holy life and has accomplished his object is the one we call Arhat. The other saint from Sotapatti stage to the Arhat path stage are called Sekha. Because keep in mind the Sekha. So those who, the saints from Sotapatti level to the Arhat level, they are called Sekhas because they still undergo training. They still undergo training. Arhat could experience the Nibbanic bliss even in this very life before passing away, because it's not something physical but mental. Therefore, that stage is called Nirodha Samapatti, eternal concentration, free from all worldlings. Is everything is completed, only physical body which is here is there. Once he leaves this physical body, then it is final physical body he had. No more existence. He attains the supreme bliss of nirvana, liberation, eternal liberation, eternal bliss. And that he could, the Arhat could, experience in this very life with his physical body too. So I have explained Sotapatti, Sakadagami, Anagami, Arhat, the four stages of the enlightenment. So it's better Go through those notes that you have taken as usual you take. Go through those notes and see. You can see the level. First level, what the practitioners get rid of, drop, and second stage when they reach there, what they do, how they drop certain things, and at the third stage, what they are doing, what will be dropped by them, given up. Then at the fourth level, Sota, Sakudagam, Anagam, Arahat level, the fourth stage, Arahat level, the worthy ones. His physical body is there, mind is there, but he could enjoy the eternal bliss. That is called Nirodha Samapatti in this very life, with the presence of this physical body, which is going to be his last physical body. That's it. So we can feel that only when we reach that level. Otherwise, our knowledge will be simply bookish. Try to see this. Let us work hard together to reach that level. That will be the eternal bliss. May you all be blessed with understanding and wisdom to reach that level. Sukhi ho.
That concludes today's program. If you have any questions about the contents of our broadcast, please feel free to reach out to us at info@buddhadharmatv.com. Our dedicated team remains committed to sharing the profound teachings of the Buddha, helping you walk the path of wisdom and enlightenment. Thank you for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again next week at the same time. Namo Buddhaya.